listen to the rain. Jesus, 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 there is something about that name. Master, Savior, Jesus, like the fragrance after the rain. Jesus, 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 let all heaven and earth proclaim. Kings and kingdoms will all pass away, but there's something about that name. Jesus, 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 there's just something about that name. Master, Savior, Jesus, like the fragrance after the rain. Jesus, 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 let all heaven and earth proclaim. Kings and kingdoms will all pass away, but there's something about that name. Yes, there is something about that name. Oh, Jesus. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. There's just something about that name. Master, Savior, Jesus, like the fragrance after the rain. Yes, yes, yes. Jesus. It is just like the fragrance after the rain. It is so, so beautiful, that name of Jesus. Today has been one of those days that I have poured my heart out to the Lord. I thank Him for everything that I've been through, everything that I'm going through. I thank Him for where I was, where I am now, and where He is taking me to be. I ask Him to bless each and every family member, each and every friend and enemy, to receive every single blessing that knowing the name of Jesus just, wow, it just lightens me up, you know. I can remember many, many years ago when I was just a child. I've known who Jesus is since I was just a knee-high to a grasshopper, you know. But life comes along, and we make mistakes. Lord knows I've made my mistakes. I've made so many mistakes. But you know what? There's not one mistake or one thing that can ever stop Jesus from loving you. All you have to do is love Him back. Love Him for everything that you have, because everything that we have, we owe to God. We owe every single thing. The breath that we breathe, the sight for seeing, you know, our eyes. You know, before we were born, knew all about us. He knew every hair on our head. He knew every sin that we were going to commit. He knew every thought, every motive, every emotion that we were ever going to feel, or anything that we ever spoke. He knew. When I was a kid and growing up, the one thing that I always focused on was the fact that Jesus loved us enough without even knowing us to actually give his life for us. Can you give your life for somebody that you love without knowing them? I don't know if I could, but I sure as heck would probably think about it. But maybe, because I have the love of Jesus inside me, the love of God dwells in my heart. If I saw somebody on the streets that had a gun aimed at them or something, I honestly do think that I would probably try to step in front of that person with the gun and protect that person. You know why? Because I know that God's going to protect me. Whether it's my time, he spares my life. I know that I've done a work here on earth. I'm pleased with myself, even though I've made mistakes, because I have come to know God in such a profound way that even when I slip at the tongue and I say things that I know that I shouldn't say, but they come out, I instantly ask for forgiveness. And God knows that we're human and that we're going to make mistakes. That's what free will is, We're given the opportunity to walk away from certain situations, but then there's other situations that we end up getting kind of roped into that maybe we're just not strong enough in our faith, that we don't have the tools in the right place. The one thing that we need to focus on is the fact that we are not fighting the human race. We are actually fighting with the darkness, which is evil. Satan has 3 things in mind. He wants to steal from us our joy. He wants to steal from us everything that God's ever given us: hope, inspiration, life. I mean, he's here to steal, kill, and destroy us. And he's going to do everything in his power to make us walk away from God. He's going to feed us with lies. And he's going to tell us that if we weren't right with him, that he's going to tell us, okay, this is what I'm going to say. Satan is going to tell us that he will protect us and he will give us all the riches. He will give us the money. He will give us everything that we've ever wanted as long as we follow him. And the one thing that we need to remember is that he's not doing that. He is feeding us full of a bunch of lies. He will tell us in our minds that when a child dies, that it's because we've sinned against God and that God is the reason that that child died, but it's not true. There's many people that will actually believe that if there was a God, why would children die? Why would there be cancer? Why would bad things happen? But even though those bad things happen, you know, it says in the Bible, and I can't really pinpoint the scripture right now, but I will bring that to light later on. And that is the fact that God gives Satan enough permission to do certain things, as he did with Job. The one thing that God never, ever gives Satan is the authority to kill somebody. He does give them the authority to, I guess you want to call it test, because Satan's the only one that tests. God doesn't test us. Satan's the one that tests us. Satan tests us in the fact of, are we going to denounce him and follow Christ? Are we going to believe in Jesus? Are we going to do the right thing? I mean, look at Job. Okay. Let's see. Job lost his family. Excuse me. Job lost his family. Job lost his crops. Job lost his livestock. But you know what? Even with all of that, all the hurt and all the anger, he never, ever turned against God. And the one thing that really keeps me going in all the situations that I have ever been through is I go back and I read the book of Job, because I look at it as if, you know what? If Job could do that, then I know I can. And God knows that I've lost a lot. But God has brought me through so much. And even though I lost things, I had so much more to gain. I had so much more to gain. I've got, oh my gosh, I've got beautiful grandchildren. I have a wonderful husband, even though we've had our problems. God has brought us through. I almost lost my life on many occasions, either through attempted suicide or rolling my car over. Not exactly ODing, but pretty much close to it on alcohol and nerve pills, alcohol and sleeping pills. I mean, I went through so much stuff when I was younger. I was a young mother. I got married when I was 18, only because I wanted to get out of my grandparents' house. I made the threat that I was going to marry the first person that came along, and lo and behold, I did. I married my grandmother's butcher, but that didn't last, because I was 18 when I got married, and I was 18 when we got separated. We lasted about a month. I got pregnant the night of our honeymoon, and 3 weeks later, we were separated, and I ended up going back to my mother's and having twins, beautiful boy and a beautiful girl. I lived with my mother and my stepfather for 3 months, and then I finally got out on my own, and then my life just started really going downhill. I started drinking real heavily. I started being promiscuous. I did a lot of things that I'm not proud of. I mean, seriously, I fell asleep on my floor, totally drunk off my butt with my babies in their crib. My mother came to my house, took my kids, and it was a while before I got them back, but I've been there. I know exactly what it's all about. And I came back, but then I fell again. I went right back into the alcohol and the men, and I got pregnant again. I was 21. I think I was 21. I had my baby girl. I'm thinking I was 22 maybe. And I don't know. I ended up raising my 3 kids pretty much on my own with boyfriends again. You know, I never got married again until I was 26. And I was blinded by the wolf, I should say. I was pretty much blinded by a wolf in sheep's clothing. Thank God we never had any children. We were married for 11 years, and God intervened. There was a lot that happened in the last 2 years of our marriage that it's hard to even talk about. I still see a counselor over it because I haven't got through it. It's something that I have to deal with, and I'm dealing with it not even on my own, but through counselors intermittently and through God. You know, if it weren't for God, I probably wouldn't be here now, because I was on the verge of, I don't know what I would have done. I really don't know. Well, then I ended up having legal problems over all that. And in 2001, I met somebody. Well, I actually knew him beforehand. And I ended up marrying him 3 years later. We got together in 2001, and I married him in 2004. But during that 3 years that I got convicted. Oh my goodness, I got convicted so bad of my sinful life. I was living with a man while being married to another, and I had to end it with my first husband. My second husband, sorry, because I didn't want to live in sin anymore. So I got married in August of 2004, right after Hurricane Charlie. And I had many, 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 many difficulties with that marriage for a very, very, very long time. I was dealing with different situations like alcoholism, drug addiction, being arrested for driving on suspendeds, non-payment of child support. I mean, you name it. This is what I went through with my third marriage. But there's a but in there, because there's a major, major plus. But then there's also downfalls. I always believed in prayer, and for the longest time I stopped praying. And the reason I stopped praying was because I didn't want to pray no more. Because when I prayed, my prayers got answered, whether it was a prayer that was good or it was a prayer that was bad. Just some form of intervention I would pray for, and it would get answered. So I started to get to the point where I just did not want to pray anymore. My husband had gout. Very, very bad. And, well, when he drank, his gout would flare up. And I prayed so hard for intervention. I actually prayed to God, and I said, you know what, God, I need you to intervene. I need you to either put him in jail or put him in the hospital. And you know what? Oh, Lord, within 24 hours. He was either in jail or he had a complete blowout with his gout. So bad. His knee would swell up like a football. Take him to the hospital in an ambulance because there's no way he could even walk. And he was a big man. So just to get him to the gurney, they had to put the gurney in the living room, and then they had to take a chair, put it beside the bed, put him on the chair, and then slide him or carry him into the living room or whatever they decided to do. And it took quite a few people to do it because he was a big man. But he had to have his knee drained, and he was in the hospital for a few days over that. And then it would get better. And then he would start taking pills. He crashed. And he almost burned. I mean, there's a place called Southwest Florida Addiction Services. They call it SWAFS. And I had to call my son and his girlfriend at the time, and they had to literally put him in the car to take him to Florida Southwest Addiction Center. And I had to call them, and I had to beg for a bed because I told them my husband was dying because I believed he was dying. He was taking Oxycontins. And I blame myself because I had shoulder surgery and, well, the pain clinic had put me on Oxycontins, and they were 80 milligram, which are very, very powerful. Well, I didn't know he was stealing them, but he was taking my pills, and I mean, he got so bad that he would literally be storing a pot of chili and fall asleep with his hand in the pan over the stove, and he crashed. So I had to have them take him down there, and he stayed there for, I'm thinking, about a week, and then he came home. Well, then things were good for a while, and, well, the place where we were living, the old man asked us to leave, so we left. I ended up moving in with, let me think. No, I didn't. Yes, I did. Okay, I ended up getting a place of my own. My daughter came to visit me, and we found this nice house. But I ended up with the same situation. He started drinking. He was doing jobs that he would take the money and not complete the job. So he would use the money to buy pills off the street, or he would actually take my prescription and he would go somewhere to another pharmacy and he would get it filled, and he would literally just pay for it instead of using my insurance, so that I did not know. Well, then we started a business, and wow, we were a fencing company. We were doing awesome. Then we started a handyman service, and things just went array again. And well, then Hurricane Charlie came up, and there was a problem with the contractors that were pulled in and audited. If they weren't licensed through the state, they got it for contractor fraud, even though they had an occupational license. So many, many people got pulled into this situation, including a pastor friend of mine who did pool cages, and a bunch of other friends of ours. We actually did the work. The work was exceptional, and it was accepted by the homeowner. Unfortunately, at that time, there was a problem, as I said, with the state of Florida. They came in because it was a state of emergency situation where contractors were doing the work. And if you did not have a general contractor's license for the state of Florida, you got in trouble. So needless to say, my husband, wow. Anyways, I sold everything that we had in order to pay for my house. I was buying a really nice house. It was a 5-bedroom house. I mean, it was gorgeous. I miss it to this day because it was a really, really nice house. And then after that, we moved to another place. And a situation arose there. Well, then my husband got to the point where, I mean, he was still doing drugs. And then he started working for a company that he got in trouble for. They said that he stole things with a company credit card. Well, it was proven that there was another guy involved. Unfortunately, he didn't have to go through the same situation that my husband did, but my husband was incarcerated over that. And what it was it was a tool that this guy had given him that belonged to the company, and my husband did not know about it. And of course, you know, with the drug addiction, he went and pawned it, and they did a pawn audit. So they got the situation where they said it was dealing in stolen merchandise. Well, he didn't know at the time. So he got in trouble, and he ended up taking a plea offer over the whole situation, and he would not bring his friend into it who actually got him involved. Well, then while my husband was gone, this friend ended up, something happened that he got severely injured at work, and unfortunately he passed. Well, then my husband came home and moved back in with me in 2015. At that time, I had moved out of Florida because I was living in a fifth wheel because my husband no longer wanted to pay rent. He put everything that we owned in storage, and we lived in a fifth wheel for the next 3 years. Anyways, it was only supposed to be for 6 to 8 months, but it ended up being 3 years. I ended up losing everything that I owned. Everything. Everything that can't be replaced was gone. In 2015, he came back, and he was a changed man. He is still a changed man. I mean, he definitely nothing like he was. God has miraculously turned him around. The only thing that has changed, the only thing, I mean, for a very, very long time, his temper was gone. And then, like, all of a sudden, it just, I don't know if it was because he was overwhelmed with work, because we started our own business again. I started a construction company. And I think that the work really became overwhelming for him, but it started to get to where we were having difficulties. We were having fights. I mean, constant. I mean, he was throwing things and breaking things and cursing at me up and down one side and the other. And I just prayed. I prayed and I prayed and I prayed. This was after I moved into my mother's house because my mother, I mean, we decided to stay here to help my parents, but they decided they were going to move back to Florida. So we took the house. And things were okay. then they got bad, then they got okay. And every time I felt that things were getting better, they got worse. So I just continued to pray. Then we started going to church. Things got better. He was really into this one church. I mean, he was like, wow. I mean, he loved the pastor. I mean, he loved him with all of his heart. But prior to that, this is what got us back into church. He was working on one of the job sites, and he was doing a 2-story deck off the ground, trying to get it done because the homeowner decided that she needed to get it done. So he was working diligently on getting this done, and he fell. He come down like this. And man, I thank God to this day, because I almost lost my husband. Thank God the angels were there to pick him up and direct him down softly. He didn't break his neck. He didn't break his back. But when he twisted, he came down on his left side. And you know, the force of an impact. He blew out his right hip, and he ended up having to have a I guess they call it a rod and a staff. It was like a pole that went down like this, and then there was like, well, it goes like this, and then kind of like this, and then he has a bolt that goes through here, and it kind of like adhered his femur back together. But he's got a something in his hip that it still bothers him to this day. I was scared. I was really scared, because Satan really wanted to take him out, because he was really getting involved with the church again. And, you know, so was I. Well, then we went for a long time. And then that pastor ended up being pulled down, and they brought another pastor in. I mean, she was phenomenal. I don't know what happened. She was moved. Well, then there was somebody else brought in. And, well, my husband's one of those ones that he doesn't like change. So he walked away. You know, he got used to the pastor. They brought another one in, and it was completely different again. So he just walked away. I started going to another church. He started coming. He came, I think, twice, maybe. And then he didn't go back. And then my daughter moved up here. And we had a situation with her when she was in Florida. So we brought her up here. She was very sick, and we had to get her into a medical treatment that eventually it helped her. I mean, wow, she was on the verge of death. And the doctors in Florida, they just kept pushing it, and yeah, I mean, they were passing the buck, and they just kept saying that there was nothing wrong with her, that it was all in her head. We got her up here, and they found out what the problem was. My daughter was septic. My daughter had severe liver problems. She ended up with an infection, I mean, totally throughout her whole body. It was attacking her. We started going to another church. It was a Christian church. It was more on our level of what we were used to down in Florida. It was more upbeat, charismatic, listening to New Day kind of music and stuff like that. And I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden, my daughter was so involved with the church. She was breaking down the stage and everything. And we were going to Bible services every Monday, and I think it was like Wednesday or something like that. Yeah, I think it was Wednesday. Anyways, my daughter and I were going for a very, very long time. She started she was starting a group, but she did change something on Facebook, and it was called Mothers of Living Waters. Well, my husband came, and he was doing great. He loved the worship, and we were going every Sunday. And then all of a sudden, just out of the blue, Robert didn't want to go no more. So, because he was the driver, I didn't go. But my daughter continued to go. And then things changed again. She stopped going to church. She stopped going to the groups. She stopped working in the youth center. It just all changed. Well, then, there was a major blowout. Oh my gosh, there was a major blowout between me and my daughter. And some major fighting between me and my husband. And I started withdrawing. I started pulling myself away from the family and just living in my room. And I just wanted to be away from everybody. I didn't want anything to do with my daughter or with my husband. I was fighting with my mother on the phone. I was fighting with my son. I was fighting with my other daughter. I was fighting with everybody I came in contact with. I was even yelling at my pastor, who was a friend. I was bad. I was doing the unthinkable. Wow. I got to where I didn't want to cook. I didn't want to clean. I went through a severe depression, to the point where I contacted my doctor, and I literally asked them to increase my meds. Because if I didn't get an increase in my meds, I was going to kill my daughter. I was going to kill my husband. I was just so at the point where I did not know where to go. Do you ever get to the point where you take like 2 cotton balls and you like very lightly touch them, and it just sounds like something is exploding in you, and you just like want to blow up at everything? That is where I was at. I stopped functioning. Completely stopped functioning. And then, you know what? I started listening to my music again. Then I started focusing on the Bible. Then I started praying. And then things changed. Things changed, and I started remembering where I was at. I started remembering where I'm at now. Focusing on my marriage and how much I love my children, and a lot of the reason why they are the way they are is because of the way that I was, the way that I lived. I missed out on so many things with my children, and because of that, they ended up with major, major problems. I wish I could go back, but unfortunately, God has not. He hasn't put that in the plan. So that will never happen. After Christmas, before Christmas, my other daughter had contacted my daughter who was living with me and invited her to come live with her and to train for management at her store that she works at. She wanted to stay until after Christmas. So she did. And now she's gone. She left the day after Christmas. And she's been home once since she left, and that was actually for Christmas Day. It's hard because, well, my daughter and we started getting along, and I actually told her that I didn't want her to go. I asked her why, after we started getting along, did she want to leave me, and she asked me if I was going to start crying, and I told her no, but it hurt inside because I felt betrayed. I felt that, I don't know, I brought her up here to help me, to be here to help with the business, and she betrayed us. I mean, we brought her up here and she left, you know, but I know that it's what God wanted, because since she left, things have gotten so much better. There's so much more peace in our house. The only thing I really miss is her cooking breakfast on Sunday. And, well, she did help my husband with a lot of jobs. I do miss that, because my husband he's at the point again where he's not working every day, and I'm lucky if he works maybe 2 days a week. If I'm lucky, maybe 3, because he's so worn out and in so much pain with his hip and everything and his shoulders that he just can't get out there and work. So I've been sitting at my desk and I'm trying to figure out things. I am working on many things, trying to compensate and help my husband so that he does not have to be the complete sole winner for the bread. I mean, I don't want him to be the, how do I say this, the complete sole provider. Even though it says in the Bible that the man of the house is supposed to be the one that takes care of the house, he's the steward of the house, he is the provider, he is the strength, the protector, the actual backbone to keep the family going. My husband doesn't like, what's it called? He doesn't like strife. He doesn't like, what's it called? Drama. He does not like drama. So he's more at ease, but he does miss my daughter. He misses Candace very, very much, because she was a very, very big help. And I just pray every day that she's doing good. I know that she's my baby, and I always want the best for her. But I also have a situation with my son. I love him with all my heart. He is always going to be my baby boy. His life over the past, I'm going to say 17 years, has been hard. Very hard. He was married to a nice and wonderful woman who he thinks controlled him. But if you knew my son, you would understand why she did what she did. He has 2 beautiful children, my grandchildren. And he decided that he didn't want that life anymore. And, well, he lost everything. He lost his job. He lost the ability to see his kids. He lost his mental freedom. His, I want to call it healthful freedom. He lost his home. He was living on the streets. He was living in his car. He turned to street drugs. And all I could do was pray. Pray that every day I would wake up and not hear anything that he was dead, or that he was beat up, or that he was in jail. I prayed and I prayed and I prayed. God answered those prayers. I thank him every single solitary day. So I'm going to say right now, just continue to pray and never, ever give up on the Lord, because he is always going to be there for you and with you. Get down on your hands and knees. Get down on your stomach and just cry out to him and give him everything. Everything that's ever bothered you, everything that you're going through, just give it to him. Don't hold it in. Don't try to take care of it yourself, because we can't take care of it ourselves. And remember, God is in control. We are not. I thank you all for listening to my story. And I just want to continue coming to you with updates of everything. Be blessed. And remember, I love you. And so does God.